When I was a teenager, punk rock wasn't just a sound. It was survival. It was the soundtrack to every slam door, every you don't belong here, and every late night search for meaning in a world that felt upside down. Now, decades later, I found myself walking the streets of Lisbon to see the bands that shaped me. Live, loud, and unapologetic. This video might not be for everyone. I'm not hiking in a volcano. I'm not sipping on a coffee or espresso in some mountainous town. This video is a little bit different. If you're curious to know me, a little bit about like some of my interests in things besides travel, I love music, I love punk rock, and so this video is going to be a little bit different. So it'll give you a little bit of understanding of what kind of makes me tick and my thinking of making these videos. So maybe, just maybe, it'll also inspire you to take the music that you love and to allow it to shape you in the way that you travel in the world. And to like really think about these lyrics that of your favorite musicians and how they shape you in your mind and your ethos. So, just go ahead and take a listen to this. It's going to be a little bit different. So I'm just trying to, switch it up a little bit. So, at the very least, you'll be reminded of music that it doesn't just reflect you, it reveals who you are becoming. So it's not just that this is a part of my youth, it's part of who I am and how I operate with the things like going into bad religions, no control, just not being able to control certain situations in this world. So, yeah. Before I ever boarded a plane or crossed a border, I was already traveling in my mind, in my headphones, and in my journal. Music, especially punk, was my first compass. I didn't have a map, but I had lyrics. I didn't know where I belonged, but I knew I wasn't alone. Bands like Bad Religion and Strung Out didn't just shout about the system, they put the words to the confusion I felt trying to find my place in the world. And in a weird way, this teenage angst I carried back then, it's the same energy that pushes me to explore now. I don't travel to escape anymore. I travel to connect, to feel, to question, to make sense of the world the way punk first taught me to. When I first heard Trinta Um, I didn't know what to expect. They weren't part of my teenage punk rotation. Hell, I hadn't even heard of them much until I walked into this venue. But the moment they hit the stage, that unmistakable raw energy, that unapologetic rage wrapped in purpose, it felt like home. Punk doesn't need translation. Whether it's shouted in English, Portuguese, it hits you in the chest and wakes up something real. And these guys, Trinta Um, they reminded me that punk is alive, not archived, not nostalgic, it's here. It's local, and it's still pissed off for a reason.
What we got pretty steady, can I know? So, let's take a little session.
When I was a teenager, Strung Out felt like they were writing my story, but with way harder guitar riffs. They were different. Faster than the pop-punk bands, more poetic than the hardcore screamers. Their songs didn't give you answers. They gave you permission to ask the questions. Songs like Blueprint of the Fall or Bring Out Your Dead were like open wounds set to melody. I didn't know how to describe anxiety or purpose or existential dread back then, but I felt it in every note. Now, as I travel from country to country, I still carry that emotional blueprint. Strung Out taught me that there's a beauty in being broken, that chaos can be an art, that some of us were born to wander, not to escape, but to evolve. This is when things become too close to see. was maybe 14, first time I heard of Agnostic Front. I didn't know anything about New York hardcore. I just knew that they sounded like Survival. Where other bands sing about feelings, these guys were throwing punches at the world, and I needed that. They didn't pretend to have perfect answers. They made it clear. Life's not fair, and you better stand your ground. For my family I live, for my family I die. That lyric wasn't just a chorus, it was a code. Now, as someone who travels solo, I carry that sense of choosing family with me everywhere I go. The friends that I've made at hostels, co-working spaces, backstage after shows, they're part of a new tribe. In that sweaty Lisbon venue, screaming along with strangers who knew every word, I was home. Sometimes there are songs that just punch you in the gut. And then there are songs that stay with you through decades. For me, Sorrow by Bad Religion has always been more than just a track. It was a prayer whispered into the chaos, a call to conscience. A song that didn't try to fix things, just admitted how damn hard life can be sometimes. Let me take you to the hurting ground. The lyrics felt like a mirror, first to a teenage kid full of rage and confusion, and now to a grown traveler, still making sense of the world, filled with injustice, war, and wonder all tangled in one. Some people bring guidebooks to their travels. I bring lyrics. When all soldiers lay their weapons down, or when all kings and all queens relinquish their crowns, standing in that crowd in Lisbon, singing along with thousands of strangers to a song I once played alone in my bedroom, it felt like closure. Not to my story, but to that old chapter. Punk didn't save me, but it sustained me. And it still echoes in how I explore, connect, and create. Travel isn't always about postcards and perfect sunsets. Sometimes it is about running face first into the past and realizing it still means something. Seeing Bad Religion, Agnostic Front, Strung Out, and discovering a band like Trinta Um reminded me that punk rock wasn't just a teenage phase. It was a lifeline, a language, a compass. I didn't know I'd still be using it into my 30s and 40s. This time with a backpack and a passport instead of a Walkman and a locker full of stickers. So yeah, maybe this video wasn't for everyone, but hey, it definitely was for me.
Because sometimes when you travel, you have to look back at all the struggles that you had overcome to be able to push forward, to discover these new places. You had to run straight into your teenage idols, which, hey, look, I did. So keep your dreams alive, adventurers, no matter how long you've been holding on to them. Because some dreams, they don't die. They just wait for the perfect stage.